Sweet. All right, live stream. All right, guys, we're gonna be doing a live stream in my garage today. This is an impromptu live stream. I didn't tell anybody about it. I just decided to record it and do it. I have a bunch of videos of me showing you how to tear apart a 94 carburetor. There's a bunch of different styles. I thought I'd just hit a live stream while I'm doing one real quick. And if you haven't seen one of my previous videos, maybe this will help you. So what I have set out here is all the tools you need to rebuild a 94 heat gun. I use these a lot on the carburetors. There's a lot of things, bolts, screws that get stuck on these that just need a little bit of heat, then they'll break loose, nothing crazy. And a couple screwdrivers. And I have my rebuild kit that I'm going to run over there and grab real quick. But these are very, very easy to take apart. My rebuild kit is from Millworks Hot Rod Supply. Make sure you check them out. I'll put a link in the description after this video post when it's no longer a live stream. But these are very simple to take apart. If you're going to be rebuilding your first carburetor ever, I would recommend rebuilding one of these. That's how simple these are. This one is off of this beautiful Mercury, or this beautiful coupe right here. It's a 40 Ford coupe, and this should be really simple. This was somewhat running, but it wasn't squirting anything out of the squirter, so I recommend let's just take it down and rebuild it. So let's pull this apart, and I'm going to show you how simple this is. We're going to start with the choke lever over here. There's a flathead screw. There should be a spring on the choke, which I don't see, so we'll have to fix that. But we have a little detent down here underneath the actuator. So when I unscrew this, make sure you push down on here so you don't shoot that detent out and lose it. So I'm going to unscrew this. And I'm going to try to make this live stream somewhat fast, just because these are really simple. And now I'm going to take the choke lever off. Here's our detent. Get the spring to come out from the inside there. I might need to grab some needle nose or something, but that's okay. It's kind of stuck in there. We'll grab it with something smaller here in a second. Now I'm going to separate the top from the bottom. Very simple. I personally don't use a drill gun or impact gun on any of these just because it's so easy to strip out the aluminum threads. So we're going to separate the top from the bowl. We have all these screws on the top here. One thing you need to know is these weren't just on flatheads. They were on wire blocks. They were also on Volkswagens. So if you run across a 94, there's a bunch of different types of 94s. That's why I call it a 94. I don't call it a Stromberg. I don't call it a Holly. Chandler's Groves made them originally. I think there's a nasty story about Ford buying out their rights, selling it to someone else, or they built it themselves. I'm not sure, but look that up. Chandler's Groves, original 94 maker for these carburetors. And when I take this apart, I'm going to set it in groups. All my screws are in groups there. Now we're going to take this off. We have the float here. It's a good idea to get the float and submerge it underneath water and see if it fills up. But there's just a pin right here. We're going to pull this pin out. Then the float should come off. The only thing that's holding this pin in is the little cutout inside the bowl. The bowl holds it in. So we'll set that to the side. This is our little needle and seat here. Once the float goes up high enough, it pushes this needle up and it closes off the seat. A good rebuild kit will come with a new needle and it'll come with a new seat, since these technically need to match. They need to be manufactured together, and I just dropped mine on the floor, but I can see it right there. Now we need a really big screwdriver to take off the seat for that needle. Oh yeah, this one came out easy. That one came out easy. This is one of the times when I would actually use my little electric heat gun to get that to come off. Now we're going to take the seat out and set it to the side. Okay, so if these, well, I need to pull my little seal out, get my little screwdriver and pull my seal out, because part of the rebuild is replacing all these seals. There it is. But save them. Save all your gaskets until this carburetor is fully assembled and back together. The next thing, the choke lever, these don't always have to come out. We have 2 screws in here. If this is an old school style rebuild, these screws are going to be mushroomed either on the back or on the top, and that's how they're holding in place. If someone like I rebuilt these and it's a new style rebuild, We're gonna put Loctite on these, which you will have to use the heat gun to get the Loctite off to get the screws out. Now the choke plate, as long as it's nice and clean, you can leave it on there and submerge this whole thing in parts cleaner, which is I'm gonna end up doing after it's all the way apart. So I'm not gonna take mine apart because it looks like it's in good shape, really. This one's just needing a small rebuild. I'm gonna soak this for a couple hours, the whole thing, and my parts cleaner and that choke will be perfectly clean, good as new. All right, now we have the bowl. Take our gasket off. We're gonna disconnect our accelerator pump. You gotta be really careful with these. Some of these just push in and clip in place. Some of them have C-clips behind the little arms right here. So I know that's hard to see on this, but be careful when pulling this accelerator pump linkage off. I'm gonna push it off very nicely with a flathead screwdriver, and it should pop out. Popped out of place. Be really careful not to bend this. These bend really easily. Now that I have that detached, I can take my accelerator pump off. Now, when these carbs haven't been rebuilt for a really long time, you found it on a sitting motor, a stuck motor, that kind of situation. This gets a little shoulder on it and gets rusty, and you can't just pull this out of here really easily. Luckily for me, this one looks like it's not that type, so it's pulling out somewhat easy. Good, that came out easy. So just be wary of these getting little shoulders built onto them. This is the accelerator pump itself. What you're gonna do is compress this spring down and pull the rod off. Some kits doesn't come with the springs, some kits do. So it's nice to set this aside and just keep it. And you might need it, you might not, depending on who you get your rebuild kit from. Now, we're gonna take these off right here. They're really simple. What I'm gonna be doing is taking these plates off. These plates are gonna come out. Then, for some reason right now, I can't remember what they're called, but really, if you don't know the name of every single piece off the top of your head, it's fine, as long as you know how to take it back together, clean it, and put it back together the correct way. That's really all that matters. So we're gonna unscrew the top plate here. Then we're gonna unscrew the bottom plate. Now this is impromptu live stream, so I'm kind of just going off a whim here. And there's the top plate that I just unscrewed. Smaller version on the bottom plate. Break this loose and unscrew this. So my idea behind this live stream is I'm going to test it. I want to see how kind of internet connection I have in my garage. And if this is working out good and you guys can see me clearly, I'm going to try to do these more often and actually have a schedule for them. So that's kind of the point of this video at the moment. All right, now I'm going to take this bottom off and bridge, okay? Now, these are front to back specific, so just take a mental note of what they look like when they come out. This little brass goes towards the bowl. The brass goes towards the bowl, so I'm going to sit them on my towel here facing the same direction so I can remember which way they go. Then underneath that bridge, or the squirter right here, this is what's actually wrong with this one. The squirter is doing nothing, so that's why I'm taking it apart. And it's hard to see in the live stream, but this thing is really nasty, really gunked up. So I'm gonna set that aside. Now I'm gonna get my gasket out from underneath the bridges, underneath the squirter. So this red gasket out from underneath the squirter. And like I said, save all your gaskets until you're completely done. Then my gaskets look like they stuck here. So I'm gonna take these out. These will get soaked. So if you have to, take a picture of these before you throw them in a bucket to get soaked, because you might forget which way they go. But I'll show you in my next video which way they go. So I like to make sure I have every gasket taken out before I move on to the next step, because I don't want them to soak and not get a good clean surface on one of my gasket surfaces. Okay, so we're almost done with the bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and take off my little choke accelerator linkage here. This is really simple, and actually the spring is completely undone. It wasn't doing anything. So we wouldn't got a fast idle on a choke. So we're gonna take the fast idle off the choke lever here, then our little spring that returns the fast idle. Now we're gonna take out our jet well plugs and our jets that are down on the inside. You're gonna need the biggest screwdriver you can because it's very simple to strip out these brass fittings. This is also one of these points where I use the heat gun quite often. Let's see if this one needs it or not. It does not. Don't be afraid to use the heat gun. Use electric heat gun, not a torch, because we all know torches, brass and aluminum, don't mix very well. Jet well plugs. I see the gasket came off of that one. Gasket came off of this one. Now I'm going to get my smaller screwdriver. Oh, wrong screwdriver. I'll be right back. Need a skinny screwdriver for this part. Small screwdriver, and the jets are down inside the bowl right there. So, oh, they came out easy too. Now I'm not replacing the jets. They're staying the same. But I'm going to take them out, soak them, blow them out with compressed air to make sure everything is clean. All the passageways are good to go. And I'm going to try to show you this bowl here. This bowl is really, really crusty. So there could be junk piled up, crusted up anywhere inside this carburetor. Pretty nasty. Now that's done, I'm going to separate the bowl from our venturi down here, our throttle plate. And there's 3 screws. So there's one here. Then there's 2 at the top on this side. They are different lengths. So group them up, compare them, make sure you know which one's which for when it goes back together. And they are different sizes. So unscrew this one. Our bowl should separate from the throttle. And we should see the power valve underneath. Ooh, this one's a little stuck on. Get my rubber one here. There we go. There's our power valve underneath the bowl there. So I guess I probably should have put this live stream a little bit closer. This is a 1-inch wrench. That's what takes these power valves off. They should not be on there very tight. Well, that's not fitting very well on this power valve, so I'm going to go ahead and get my adjustable. I know people murder me every time I use an adjustable, but it really doesn't matter. These aren't even on that tight. Got this broken loose. And always look at the power valve to see which one was in it. This one is a 5.8. Kind of weird size for this carburetor. This is a stock car. And I'm going to separate my little gasket here. That surface is a little nasty. Set my gasket, my little gasket pile onto the side. Now the bowl is completely taken apart, except for I just dropped my little needle for my squirter. So pay attention to that. That goes in here underneath this squirter, this little section there. So bowl's done. Now throttle plates. These should not be screwed in very hard at all. So you should be able to unscrew these by hand. Never screw them all the way in with a screwdriver. They'll damage the tip of this needle here. These needles are very sensitive. These change how much airflow we're getting into our carburetor. Now this one has a nice little arm here. This is an aftermarket arm. So in case you're running a double carburetor, these are the type of arms you add on to after the fact. Then we have our original style arm over here. Now this car actually has a throttle cable on the dash, so you could choke it, throttle it up, and let the car warm up. But here's another part. Oh wow, these plates look really nasty. They're pitted, really pitted. I didn't know that until just this moment. Probably hard to see on the live stream. But to get these plates off, we have 4 screws here on the inside on this side. You take these 4 screws out, and this whole shaft will come out this side. So you have to take this fancy extra throttle rod off here. So they look really clean, but all this still needs to be soaked. So what I'm gonna do next is take my gasket off the surface here. I'm gonna let all this soak for a couple hours so it gets really nice and clean. So if there's anyone on the live stream, I'm actually gonna try to see if I can look at the comment section and answer some questions here. And always save all your gaskets until the rebuild is complete. Not because we want to use any of them, but you might find out that the gaskets in your kit are different, or you want to make sure everything has the right gasket on it together. You get it all together and you realize you have one extra gasket. That's a good way to find out that you have everything covered and everything's correct. This gasket gets nasty. I want to scrape that off with a razor blade. But since this part of the process is just waiting, I'll answer some questions. The live stream will end. Then in the next live stream later on this afternoon, I'll be putting it all back together today. So let me see if I have any questions. And this is just a practice live stream, guys. I will be posting this video. So this is me trying to figure out how I want to start doing these. Do you think that car's a carb to flood the engine? Let's see. Yeah, thank you for watching my videos. No problem, Leonard, about being late. This is impromptu. I didn't even know I was going to be doing this. But this one, yeah, maybe it was flooding, but the squirter was doing nothing. So every time I hit the accelerator pedal, it wasn't squirting. So it's hard to say if it was flooding or if it was just choking itself out. When I was trying to start this car, I had better success of doing the old pour the gas down, the carburetor trick. And starting it ran better that way than it did just off the carburetor, the bowl being completely full. How do you check the clearance on the throttle rod? What do you mean, like clearance on the throttle rod? I'm not really sure exactly what that question is. Can you restate it so I can help you out there? Any more questions? I want to help you out with that throttle rod question. Just need to restate it for me. I don't really know what you mean exactly. But these carburetors are the easiest carburetors you could rebuild. If you've never rebuilt a carburetor ever, these are the ones I recommend you to start with. Very simple. This is the beginner carburetor. You get used to rebuilding these, you move on to like 4 barrels and more modern carburetors. This is the best one to learn on outside from like a Model A one, which is not really a carburetor. There's nothing really there to it. But this is the entry-level carburetor if you've never rebuilt one. Just buy one of these, rebuild it, or if you have a flathead Y block, if you have one of these on it, just take it apart and rebuild it for the experience. There's not really too many measurements, too many technical things that you have to do outside from adjusting the float. And that's something that you can get wrong, find out that it's wrong, take the top of it off, fix it, and put it all back together while it's on the car. So it's really not even that sensitive. You'll find out really easily if it's wrong, especially if you have one of these that has a vent coming out the top, it'll overflow. But really simple carburetor to work on, guys. Thank you for watching my impromptu live stream. Okay, so throttle shaft bushing, this is a good question. These don't come with bushings. One thing you need to check when taking these apart to see if there's any play right here. So I don't feel any play on this side. I don't feel any play on this side. These brass throttle shafts can be worn out. Then they could give play when there's a lot of play. It sucks air in through the side and you can never get these things to run right. In order to change that, you either change the throttle rod through here and it seals it up, or if the housing itself is what's worn out and not just the rod, you drill these out to a bigger diameter, the housing, then you can tap in bushings in here to get it back down to original size. Then you can put a brass rod back in it and it'll be nice and tight. So that's a really good question. Thank you for bringing that up. That's one thing people overlook on these. Make sure there's no play. Okay, awesome. So I answered both of those questions at the same time. Watch out for play on these throttle shafts. That's what you do, drill them out, put the bushing in them, comes back down to original inside diameter on the housing. So that's somewhat common on these, but it's also one of those things that confuses people a lot and they can't figure out why it's having that problem. So good question, thank you for asking that. So now I'm gonna soak all my parts and make sure they get really clean for a couple hours. I have my little bucket over here that soaks my engine parts, gets all the nastiness off of them. They come out really clean. All you gotta do is just brush it and wipe it down after the fact. So thank you for watching my impromptu live stream. In a couple hours, once these are all clean, I'm gonna have another live stream that's gonna be impromptu, not a certain time. This is just me testing out my live stream in my garage. I wanna do more stuff. I actually want to schedule live streams depending on when I watch this after I post it, how the clarity is, how the sound is. I know what I need to change, stuff like that. So thank you for watching, for the people who tuned in, and for everyone who's going to watch it later. Comment down in the comment section of what I should do better in my live stream, if the sound was good, if the lighting was good. I know I probably need to zoom up in better on these carburetors, so I appreciate the feedback. I got my kit splintered from Millworks Hot Rod. Make sure you check out Millworks Hot Rod. There's a lot of other places online that send you a 94 kit, rebuild kit, that has parts in it that you can't use on the flathead carburetors because they don't fit, they don't work, they're the wrong size. I've run into that quite a few times. It's very frustrating. I go to Millworks, I talk to Dave. Dave sets me straight. He gets me the right parts. He gives me the good quality parts. So there's a couple other places that I use and I'm happy with, but I like working with Dave for him as a person, then also him for his quality of parts. He doesn't let anything go out junk because he's also a hot rod shop. He's not just a parts vendor. So he's rebuilding these himself in his garage too. So thanks for watching, guys. Please give me constructive criticism in the comments. I appreciate it. Have a good one.